Hi, this is basically an unwarranted response video to Josh Scott at JHS, who recently put up a video where he created an amp wall with the different heads and cabinets in his in the rooms at JHS headquarters, and I was just so inspired. I love that thing, and I'd hope to see more people putting up how they combine amps and cabs, because I just find it super interesting and extremely useful, also from the point of view that Josh takes up in that video, having real things to do stuff with and reamping and using actual physical stuff is very, very inspiring, and maybe more important than ever when in these times when we do everything with plugins and digitally, and AI does it for you and what have you. So this is just a walkthrough of my much more low-key amp wall than the JHS guys have, but I find it very useful and also very, very versatile, which is kind of the point here when reamping at the studio. So let's start with pedals. I have a pedal board with mostly overdrives, so I use the Nobel ODR1 Mini. Maybe today we can focus a bit more on the JHS Superbolt, bought entirely because I love Madison Cunningham so much, so I just had to have that pedal. I don't use it as she does, but it's a wonderful, wonderful pedal. Then I have a Rat clone, the Rude Mouse from Sonic Cake, which sounds great. And then basically, as I'm doing here, I've just tested a load of fuzz boxes. The Electron I borrowed from a colleague, and then I have an old Sovtek Big Muff, a kind of a fuzz phase circuit that I've built myself. And then on the bass board, the bass pedal board, which is much smaller, I have a Dark Glass Micro Tubes X, which is superb for really, really distorted bass. And when you just want to put it over the top, the Green Rhino by Way Huge proves to be perfect. So going over to the amps, this is kind of the wall of amps in quotation marks. Basically the Marshall Origin 20 is my main amp, and you can see here something that you have to do to make it sound good. You have to just turn down the treble and use the tilt function depending on the guitar, and it sounds amazing. So what I did was then actually exchange the speaker, because it comes with a 10-inch that we can maybe even see down here, a Celestion, what's it called, a VT Junior, and I exchanged it for a real 12-inch Greenback. It fits snugly, but sounds great. And then to complement the Marshall, I have this little guy, the Vox MV50-AC, some kind of digital amp wizardry involved. So there's not a real tube in it, but it sounds so good. I can't really describe it, but it sounds very, very good, especially when you take it out into a cabinet. And for those times when you need a chime for cheaps, that's where to go. The amp that's perhaps used the most is the Laney IRT Studio, which is a super versatile 3-channel amp with a clean crunch and a high gain channel. And for my high gain projects, this is where I go most often. And it also has a built-in load box, which makes it very, very useful when you record stuff at night. So that's kind of why this gets the most use. The same thing essentially goes for the PV Century, an old solid state amp with a power out on the back, or on the front actually. It's here, the power amp out, which also makes it extremely useful for recording with headphones and recording silently. and running it into IRs in the DAW, it sounds amazing on bass and on really kind of heavy and sludgy guitars that kind of don't have to be defined. They more have to have a great personality. Then to complement this, I have the VHT Special 6, which is a small head, and to me this is kind of a cheap high watt, and you may feel free to disagree, but it has a hard sound to it that I at least kind of connect with high watt amps, but high watt amps are so loud I couldn't use it here, and they're also quite expensive. This I found for $100, $100 used. So together, all of these amps prove to be super versatile. They fill every need that I've had so far. That sound great. So what I do then is that I have basically three speaker leads. I have one which I can connect to the Greenback in the Marshall cabinet, so I can basically use any of these amplifiers with the speaker here in the studio control room, which looks like this. It's also a drum recording room for those who wonder why there's a drum kit in here. And then I have two cables, speaker cables that go out into the cab room. And so the cab room is over there. So let's go there. So we're at the entrance of the cab room. I haven't moved very far, maybe 10 feet. And in here, apart from a lot of boxes and just stuff that you have in your normal attic, I also have guitar cabinets. So this is basically my, let's count them. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back there 5, and that's an ISO cab down here. But basically I mostly use 2 cabinets. So I have a 2x12 here with Celestion Greenback and the Celestion Vintage 30, and I actually most often use this in mono. So while they're mismatched kind of power handling wise, they work really well together, and it makes it very easy to basically mic up the different speakers and then just choose the one that I like the most. So to complement, or maybe on the Greenback, I really like the SD7 from Universal Audio, which can be used with a mic modeling technique, and just works super great. And I've combined it with an old Unidyne 545, kind of the predecessor to the SM57. And I've actually been thinking about maybe bringing back an SM57 on this cabinet, because the Greenback is quite mid-strident, and I'm thinking maybe having the choices of different cabinets and speakers, I should try to more emphasize the specific sounds that the different speakers have. So maybe an SM57 would actually work better. The 545 is much rounder, which works also great, but as you will see, there is another speaker that can maybe be even softer. That might be a good alternative. So the Vintage 30 is to the right in this cabinet, not mic'd up at the moment. Then I have another 2x12 here, which came with some hideous turbo sound speakers that I pulled out, and I put in. So this is basically my Mojotone cabinet. I have a Mojotone, a BV25. So it's basically a British voiced speaker close to the Greenback, but it's kind of less strident, but still very mid-focused. So it works great when you just don't want the kind of the punk grit of a tone. It needs to be a little softer. So this is where I'm thinking that maybe the SM57 that I have on it right now might be actually better to exchange for the 545 to really emphasize this speaker and its rounder sound. Down here is the latest speaker acquisition, which is a Mojotone Anthem. In my speaker collection, I can best compare it to the Vintage 30. It's kind of a less mid-forward speaker than the Greenbacks or the Mojotone BV25. It's more like an open Vintage 30. The Vintage 30 is a very focused speaker, which works great for high gain sounds. The Anthem is wonderful for kind of crunchy and kind of open sounds. This is also why I have a Sennheiser. This is actually not a 421, it's a BF521, but I have a 421 as well, which is broken, but these sounds very, very similar. So they really emphasize the goodness in this combo by having the Mojo Anthem and the BF521. Going further, I actually have a Jensen speaker in this 112 down here. Came with a Greenback that I put in the Marshall amplifier. This is a Jensen C12R, which is basically very handy to have for my work, at least, to use together with the Vox MV50. It's a very, very chimey speaker, and maybe too chimey at times, but it's good to have kind of the extremes. Then I have a 215 bass cabinet down here, which is, as you can see, not used very much, but it can be used. And then in the ISO cab, which I have a whole other video on, there is a 12-inch speaker baffle, but I've not really used it very much. It just doesn't sound as good as having a speaker in the air, open air. So I thought I'd use it more during the nights and stuff, but it turns out that I think the IRs are a better option, actually. So the miking situation in here is basically that I have I have 6 cables running into the control room, but I only have 4 connected, and you will see why in a moment. So basically I can put up 4 mics here on any cabinet combination and use together. So back in the control room, I have a rack here, and if we focus on these 2 things, it's a Studio Projects SP828 mic pre, 8-channel mic pre, with a lot of, all the normal bells and whistles like polarity, reverse, and phantom power, and so on. And it also has direct outs from every channel. But the big thing with this one is that it also has a mix functionality. So I'm using the channels 5 through 8. You can see I've just put some markers here to indicate that these 4 mics, or these 4 inputs, are basically mixed together and sent to one channel on the interface. This means that the 4 lines that are going from the cab room can be mixed and matched very, very easily here, and combining the mics into a sound that you want. I've also put the Mindprint N-Voice, which is kind of a more advanced mic pre with EQ and compressor. Put that as an option, so I can switch to that on channel 8, which means that I can also put up a ribbon mic. The Mindprint N-Voice has a really great preamp, super high impedance that works great with ribbon mics. So that's it. Maybe a long video, but it's also a very important topic, I think. So please do more videos like this. I will surely watch them, and have a great day.